Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Depth Chart Prediction Season, taking a look at this Oklahoma roster and predicting what this starting unit is going to be week one of the 2024 college football season. One of my favorite offseason episodes to do every single year because, one, it means college football is coming up pretty damn soon, but I think more importantly, we spent so much time talking about this Oklahoma roster, talking about potential breakout players, talking about the spring practice notes, fall camp notes. Now we all get that ability to kind of call our shot heading into 2024. Now, a quick disclaimer to some potential new Oklahoma listeners. This is not my depth chart. This is a depth chart that's purely used as kind of a visual. I use the visual so you all don't have to just look at my ugly mug on the full screen. But more importantly, so we can kind of map out some of the players and kind of how this depth chart roughly stacks up. We're going to be making some significant changes to this depth chart as we go through the roster. Really excited to get into this one. Before we do, and as always, and I think most importantly, what I think separates this Oklahoma team from the past two seasons is I think it's much more deep than it was the first 2 years. And so there's a lot of guys that I might not necessarily pencil in as my day one starters, but are going to play a lot. So if you guys disagree with me, I would love to hear it in the comment section because chances are I'm probably going to agree with you that the player that you are frustrated that I don't have as a starter, I probably think is going to play a lot too and be a pretty damn good football player. So I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. The best part about doing this is learning from you guys and talking ball. And if y'all do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. The amount of support the OU fans have shown the boys, it's been absolutely amazing. We appreciate you guys. And without further ado, let's get into this one. Let's start easy. Jackson Arnold, quarterback one. I think the interesting conversation in that quarterback room is, all right, who's going to be quarterback two? Because there is so much buzz around Mike Hawkins as a true freshman. I'm going to ride the hype train. I'm going Mike Hawkins as the quarterback two. I think at the end of the day, he's much more dynamic than Casey Thompson. And Casey Thompson's a solid quarterback, has obviously been in the college football landscape for quite a long time. That being said, there's not really an elite trait that Casey Thompson has. If you were to trot out Mike Hawkins, I mean, it opens up this offense to do so many different things. And from what you hear about Mike Hawkins in spring practice, in fall camp, the kid doesn't carry himself and look like a true freshman quarterback. So if you're talking about who quarterback two is within that room, I think Mike Hawkins is going to be it. But at the end of the day, if you're an Oklahoma fan, I think that quarterback runway is looking really good over the next couple of years. Going to the running back spot, Gavin Sawchuk, no-brainer, running back one. Big storyline coming out of fall camp, at least for myself, is who has emerged as that running back two. That's going to be Javante Barnes. And you go back 12 months ago, I mean, we were all extremely excited about Javante Barnes going into year two. Obviously, the injuries, the inconsistent play, wasn't really able to stay on the field. From what you're hearing out of fall camp, Javante Barnes looks like the Javante Barnes that we saw as a true freshman. I think that's a massive storyline for this Oklahoma team. I mean, you look at Gavin Sawchuk, Javante Barnes as that running back one, running back two duo. That's really strong for Oklahoma. And then you sprinkle in a guy like Taylor Tatum, who I think probably emerges as that running back three. A lot of different ways you can get him involved in the offense. I'm feeling pretty good about the depth at the running back room, but make no mistake about it. Sawchuk one, Javante Barnes two. Going to the wide receiver room, I think this is kind of where it gets interesting in terms of how Oklahoma decides to navigate and use all of these different kind of wide receiver options. Now, I think this is your starting three wide receivers that you see on the screen at least come week 5. Like as Andrew Anthony gets back healthy, he's going to be a starting wide receiver. And Andrew Anthony, Nick Anderson, Deion Burks, those are going to be three wide receivers that are really hard to get off the field because they're so good and they do so many different kind of things, right? You look at Deion Burks, lightning in a bottle when he has the football in his hands. You look at Nick Anderson, big body that excels working vertically down the field. Then you look at Andrew Anthony and say, just a super polished route runner that knows how to find space. And these three wide receivers are all really good wide receivers, but I think more importantly, they really balance each other out in terms of each and one of their skill sets. And so I think there's so many different ways that you can attack opposing defenses with these three wide receivers. And I think this is a room that is not getting nearly enough respect in terms of how good I think it can be in the 2024 season. Now, talking about a few other the weapons that I think play a lot, obviously with the injury to Jaden Gibson, I think Jalil Farouk's going to play a lot. Jalil Farouk, before that junior year, was really good. I mean, 12 months ago, we were banging the table for this kid. Obviously, an inconsistent, I would say frustrating year for Jalil Farouk in the 2023 season. If he gets back to form, I think that's a really good wide receiver in the SEC. And I think the interesting conversation is that who kind of replaces this skill set that Jaden Gibson was going to give to Oklahoma. This was a wide receiver that averaged over 23 yards per catch, 26 yards per catch, I believe, 23 yards average depth target, a wide receiver that was big, that could work vertically down the field. A couple of different wide receivers I would shout out. And I think first are the speedsters, guys like Jaquez Petaway, Brennan Thompson. Brennan Thompson goes 10-3 in the 100-meter dash. Jaquez Petaway goes 10-5. These two kids absolutely cook. You're looking for a kind of wide receiver that can test defenses vertically down the field. I would look at Jaquez Petaway and Brennan Thompson. I think the other wild card that I would throw into that conversation, true freshman Ivan Carrion, a kid that was committed to Texas Tech, flips to Oklahoma, 6'6", 225. He was an animal at the high school level. Now, how well does that physicality translate year one is the question mark. I think this kid could give maybe a similar skill set to what Jaden Gibson gave Oklahoma in 2023, where Jaden Gibson wasn't going to play 30-plus snaps every single game for Oklahoma, but he was going to come on the field and provide that kind of unique skill set, that big body that could work vertically. I wonder if those reps maybe go to Ivan Carrion in the 2024 season. On the offensive line, by far the biggest question mark and storyline for this Oklahoma team. I'm going to make some significant changes to what we see on the screen. Let's start at left tackle. I'm going to go Jacob Sexton. It sounds like Jacob Sexton is having a heck of a fall camp, whether it's at guard, whether it's at tackle. So if you have Jacob Sexton that's just excelling at either guard or tackle, go plug him in at left tackle. I think he's looked solid at left tackle. I think he arguably has the highest ceiling within this offensive line room. Go bet on Jacob Sexton to be your left tackle because I think you have good depth on the inside of the offensive line. You start looking at the guard spots. Troy Everett's back practicing. If Troy Everett's a full go for week one, I think Troy Everett's probably starting at that left guard spot. Branson Hickman obviously going to start at center, a guy that started 34-plus games coming over from SMU. Fabichi Nwewu coming in at right guard, and then Jake Taylor at right tackle. That's probably my best five, the ideal five for Oklahoma on the offensive line. Now, a couple of guys that I would shout out. One, Michael Tarquin as kind of that swing tackle. We've seen him play left tackle. We've seen him play right tackle at the Power 5 level. You start talking about Michael Tarquin as that tackle 3, that swing tackle that can play both sides. I think you feel pretty good about Michael Tarquin as that tackle 3. And then you look on the inside, a couple of guys that, I'd probably shout out. 1, Gary and Hatchett. 2, true freshman Eugene Brooks. I think Eugene Brooks might kind of be like that Caden Green arc where it's like, all right, this kid could play. We're not necessarily sure we're going to trot him out week one. I wouldn't be surprised if Eugene Brooks kind of works his way into that starting lineup because that kid's physicality for true freshman, in my opinion, is special. You go to the defensive side of the football, and the defensive line, it's really not that important of a conversation in terms of who starts for Oklahoma on the defensive line because a lot of these bodies are going to be rotating. Now, you start on the inside, you make no mistake about it. DeJoun Terry, Dominic Williams, that's your starting duo on the inside. I think that is an elite run-stopping duo on the inside that does give you some pass rush juice too. Now, on the outside at the edge position, I'd probably agree with Ethan Downs and Caden Woolard as being your quote-unquote starting edge defenders, edge rushers, I should say. Now, that being said, I think Caden Woolard and Ethan Downs are going to be your first and second down edge rushers. The guys that are heavy hands, that can stop the run effectively. When it gets into those pass rush situations, those third and long situations, that's when you see guys like R. Mason Thomas and PJ Adebari come onto the field. And I think there's a really nice blend, kind of similar to how we talked about the wide receivers. These edge rushers balance each other out really well, where Ethan Downs, Caden Woolard, they're kind of mag trucks, heavy hands, can win at the line of scrimmage, can be really good in the run game. The questions you have about R. Mason Thomas and PJ Adebari is what can they do against the run? If they're not ready to play against the run this in the 2024 season, you don't have to play them on first and second down consistently. Just have those guys come in for those third and long situations and pit their ears back and get after the quarterback. That's kind of how I would see this defensive line rotation looking out, but you make no mistake about it. A lot of guys are going to play. What makes this unit so good is not only do you have NFL caliber guys, it's a really, really deep defensive line too. A lot of guys are going to play, stay fresh throughout that 12-game season, especially in the SEC. Going to the linebacker room, I've been banging the table for Kip Lewis. He's put on a little bit of weight this offseason. Danny Stutzman's obviously starting. I think the big question mark is who's going to be that linebacker 2 next to Danny Stutzman. I'm going to go Kip Lewis. I think there's a couple of guys to be excited about. We kind of know what Jaren Kanak is. I'd be surprised if he plays that much football this year. Lewis Carter and Kobe McKenzie and Kip Lewis, I think, offer a heck of a lot more upside at that linebacker position. So give me Kip Lewis as the starter, but I think you see some Lewis Carter. I think you see some Kobe McKenzie. I think that linebacker 2 position gets a lot better for Oklahoma. You go to the secondary. Let's start with the boundary cornerbacks. I'm going to go Woody Washington, Gentry Williams. If Gentry Williams stays healthy, we know what we have with Gentry Williams. I think that's a really good cornerback in the SEC. Now, who's going to be that third cornerback that is inevitably going to have to play a decent amount of football? I'm going to go with Connie Walker. From what I've been hearing about fall camp and really consistent, he's 6'2", he's 210 pounds. This is a physical boundary cornerback that I think can deal with some of those physical wide receivers that we're going to see in the SEC. You go to that kind of safety room, and I don't think it matters like how we talk about, Billy Bowman Jr. is going to start. He's going to play a lot of football. Robert Spears-Jennings, really good football player. Peyton Bowen, really good football player. Expect him to probably start, but Robert Spears-Jennings is going to play a lot. Kendall Dobie's going to play a lot. I think you could see Robert Spears-Jennings kick down to that cheetah position, that kind of nickel cornerback, to just try to get, at least in my opinion, the best 3 defensive backs in that conversation are Billy Bowman Jr., Peyton Bowen, and Robert Spears-Jennings. The question is for Brent Venables and Zach Alley, how can we get all 3 of those players on the football field at the same time? If that means Robert Spears-Jennings kicking down to that cheetah role, or Peyton Bowen playing that cheetah role, that nickel role, I'm all for it. So that's kind of what I have going in that Oklahoma secondary. I would love to hear from you guys in the comment section. Again, so many different ways you could slot these guys in and out. If y'all do enjoy the content, again, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.